Interestingly, nobody really talks about the secondary missions in Sonic Adventure 2. You beat them once or twice for the A rank and then you sort of leave them in the dust because you'd rather just play the mission 1 of everything, which makes sense. But it's important to know that you can still have fun with the other challenges and they do deserve love to some capacity, and this video will be the first of probably a few upcoming videos that gives them some extra attention. Today we'll be looking at Sonic's Chao missions. For each mission, I will be tier ranking it. I would have done a worst to best normally, but with only 6 entries on this list, I figured that it was sort of counterproductive to go about it at that angle. So instead, we'll just be tier ranking and giving my thoughts. In the spirit of Sonic Adventure 2, I kept the tier list rankings from E to A instead of incorporating S's and whatnot, which does change the weight of each tier, but I'll happily explain them to you here. So A is now going to represent something that's a masterpiece. It may not be absolutely perfect, but if it's pretty close, it's eligible for the A. A B represents something that's really good. It's not a masterpiece, not quite there, but it's still a very good facet, no less. A C represents something that's good. You know, it's not extravagant, it's not crazy amazing, but you're still content with it. D represents something that's a little more akin to mediocrity. It's not great. And E, well, E's just bad. Our first stage is City Escape, and I'll kind of explain what the criteria is as we reach the Lost Chao. The ruins of City Escape is rather difficult to find, I will admit. The game doesn't really give much hints as to where it is, because as you bypass it, the camera doesn't even allow you to see it for even a moment, meaning it's a little bit more obscure to find. What I do like about it though is that there is 3 methods to getting up to this area. You could either play the Mystic Melody, super bounce up to the pulley, or use your spin dash and just grab the pulley, albeit it's a little bit of a harder maneuver. The area here isn't the most exciting. While it's nice we're climbing up a building instead of running down one, it's mostly the same thing over and over again. You hit the beetle with a spring, you hit a pulley. There is this interesting obstacle here where you have to wait for the shield to go down so you can hit the beetle, get the pulley, and then you have to grab onto the pole, hold forward after you launch yourself, and then you will get your Chao. The creativity aspect is a little bit lacking here, but it is nice that we have 3 different ways of reaching this, so that does help even out the score a little bit. Personally, I give City Escape's Lost Chao a C tier. Something that's not too bad, but could have been better. Now on to Metal Harbor's Chao. The ruins is located in that opening just above the Chao box, where you can either use your bounce bracelet and reach it, or you can spin dash off this incline, which is rather difficult because it's a bit glitchy. The Mystic Melody will summon forth these platforms that you will use to reach your Chao. It's located on this little cube just off the side of the stage. It's not a super interesting area, but luckily you can spin dash back to the stage from the platform, where, if you're really good at the game, you can ring dash right back to where you just were beforehand, so that's cool. You may think that Mystic Melody is required for this, but with a good spin dash, you could cross the gap. Hey, I said you could cross the gap, never said I could. The ruins is in a decent location, solely for the fact that the Chao box is underneath it, so you have an incentive to come here where you'll likely find it. However, when playing the Mystic Melody, this loses points for feeling rather bleak. All you're doing is crossing some platforms across water, which isn't even needed because, again, with a good spin dash that I can't do, you probably can do. This is one of those cases where the destination of the Chao itself is alright. The journey on the way there, though, is a little bit unfulfilled. I'd have to give Metal Harbor's Chao a D tier. Now on to Green Forest. Your experience concerning the location of the ruins can vary. If you skip to this spring here, you'll have a very small moment in time where you can see it. Using the spring after your homing attack chain will give you a little more time to see it, but it's still incredibly brief. And while you're bouncing, you'll actually get a very quick shot of the Chao, but it's super quick. The ruins isn't quite an obscure location on its own, but at least you'll see the island it sits on enough times that it might just pique your interest. What lies ahead at the very top is 2 beetles for you to homing attack head on so you can reach the Chao. Alternatively, you can use the slope in the surface here and homing attack them that way, or to make it even easier, you can just use the ramp here where, even without the beetles, you can homing attack and reach the Chao. Unfortunately though, I think the ruins is a bit too obscure and the location in question is just a little bit uninspired, just being a platform with 2 beetles next to it. It just doesn't make for a very fun location. This will have to be another D tier in my eyes. On to Pyramid Cave. What's interesting here is as you're traveling in Pyramid Cave, you'll find that the ruins is in plain sight, right at the end of the stage. Yep, it's right there and it's waiting for us to use it, which will summon forth a spring and put you up to the platform up here. But you can super bounce the reaches as well, so you don't need Mystic Melody. The aim of this part is made quite clear. You hit the hourglass, which opens a faraway door, and you have to swing across every bar to get there before it closes. It's a game of pressure versus patience. You have to time your swings without panicking, but also being mindful that you are on a time constraint. But hey, if those constraints aren't your thing, just super bounce above the door and come out the other side like so, and you'll complete your mission. The only issue I have with this entire mission is that the ruins is just too easy to find. Everything else is really well done though. The alternate ways of completion, the fact that it takes advantage of a gimmick that was introduced in this stage, such as the case of the hourglass, and manages to create this memorable experience that gets your blood pumping a bit. Pyramid Cave did really good in the Lost Chao department. I'd be willing to give it a B tier. Nice work. Now for the fabled crazy gadget. The way to reach the ruins in this stage is by jumping onto the red block and actually using the gravity panel over here, which will take you to the caged animal. Using that, you'll run along the purple block and you'll eventually reach the ruins. So it incentivizes you to come here in the first place, meaning that the ruins is not in some stupid obscure location and you'll be able to get on top of red where the Chao will be waiting for you. It's actually super straightforward. So if that straightforward normal process is a little bit too boring for you, check out what I discovered. If you use the panel here, you'll be running on the wall. With a well-timed spin dash jump, you'll be able to make it to the face of red. If you line yourself up properly, you can then go for a very risky jump and rescue the Chao while falling sideways. I mean, come on, that's pretty cool. There's not a whole lot wrong that is done throughout this Lost Chao mission. You go onto red, and the caged animal might be enough to incentivize you to go on top of purple. Then you will accidentally find the ruin, so it's not blatantly obvious where it is, but you're guided towards it, meaning it's fair and well placed. I will say that ring dashing isn't exactly my definition of thrilling and blood pumping per se, but it is cool that we have this really fun and experimental way to reach the Chao if we just want to take on a bit of a greater challenge. It won't be quite as memorable as something like Pyramid Cave's Chao, but it's still fun in its own right. A C tier is where Crazy Gadgets Mission 3 belongs. Now for our final stage. Final Rush. You know, as opposed to the first one. The ruins can be found on this platform about 2/3 into the stage. You can play the Mystic Melody on there, which will summon platforms that you use to get on the rails just slightly on your right that you'd be able to spin dash or even homing attack quite easily without Here, though, it appears that you were stopped by a mandatory Mystic Melody. You have to play it so the trail of rings will appear and you can cross the gap. Or do you really have to? While what you are seeing here is the intended route, stupid magnetic shield, just let me ring dash, thank you! This is a bit of a difficult process to do, but it can be done. Springing off of this rail here, you'll land on this platform and you'll want to super bounce on your left. You'll be greeted by Big here, but you want to spin dash past him and go across the gap going to the right. You'll want to shoot forward again, going for a slightly lower platform and then jump to your left. Spin dash to the left here and shoot right off while aiming left and back. If you are in the correct place, you might be able to stick the landing, but it is very tough. The camera works against you a lot of times in doing this, so don't think that this maneuver will be easy to learn because it's a game of chance. Whichever method you use to get here, however, this is a tough place to overcome. It requires very precise homing attacks onto rails that sometimes just won't work out. I can appreciate the fact that this section is rather tough. After all, it's relying on the main gimmick of Final Rush, which is its grinding, so it's cool to see that they integrated that into finding the Lost Chao as well. The original ruins isn't very well hidden, and it being in plain sight, again, I feel like is a knock against it rather than a benefit to it. Finding these ruins should be balanced, and unfortunately that's something that Final Rush and Pyramid Cave didn't quite get the memo on. The second ruins seem to be placed in order to prevent players from completing Final Rush's Mission 3 without the Mystic Melody. But again, if you're good, you can overcome that. I find it interesting that one of the final levels of the game, technically, has one of the most difficult Mystic Melodies to bypass. It's like an ultimate test to see if you can really think outside the box. And that theme sort of continues with this section here too, because this is a section that requires you to be very careful and precise with each and every jump you make. I do wish the ruins could have been hidden in a more challenging spot, but I do believe the final rush makes up for that through its difficult obstacles and an even more difficult skip to go with it. So for basically the same reasons as Pyramid Cave, Final Rush is deserving of a gold. And that, everybody, marks the end of this video. I know it's a bit of a different video taking time to appreciate the secondary missions of Sonic Adventure 2, but they do deserve some love. Obviously, everybody will always gravitate towards Mission 1 because that's just the standard way to play and that's how we do most of our challenges and things like that, but ultimately, there needs to be some love and dedication given to the secondary parts of this game, and I'm willing to be the person to do that. So, anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching and being here as much as you are. With that said, hope you have a wonderful day, take care for now, and goodbye.